Hi, this video is going to talk about how to make surveys and other types of forms using Ecollect and PowerSchool. These you can send out to students or guardians in your classrooms and get information from them. The first thing you're going to do once you're logged into PowerSchool is come over here on the left and select Forms. You'll notice that I already have some forms that I've created, and if you've ever created any or have some that other people have shared editing access with you, you'll have those in here as well. If you need to create a new form, you come up here to the center and click New Form. For now, what we're going to work with is Collaborative Student, and what this will do is it will let you send out a form to either the students or the guardians, and it will let you see the most recent response for each student from any guardian or student who put in responses at any time. It'll also automatically give you the student's name and the name of the responder. It'll pull that information from PowerSchool. So once you're in the form, this big part right here is the actual form, but you're going to do all your editing over here in this left-hand margin. And the way you start editing is you click the element in the center right, and then the options to edit it show up on the left. This top title area controls all the settings for the full form. So if I come in here, I can put in the title for my form. I can use this box to put in a description or the directions that I want people to follow. And I can use this box to add a success message. So for instance, if this was for parents or guardians, I might want to put in something positive like thanks for your input, and then once they finish the form, they'll get that message. Underneath the options, the most important one is publish. I usually wait to check that until I finish the entire form, because once you hit publish, it'll be available for people to complete. The next that I think might be helpful is hide save button. So when people are filling out the forms online, it gives two buttons at the bottom. One is a save button and one is a submit button. And apparently sometimes they have an issue where people will hit the save button and think they've submitted it, but they haven't. So if you click this, it'll hide the save button, and the only option they'll have will be to submit at the end of the form. The share permissions let you know what kind of access each of these groups of people will have. So for instance, if this was for parents, I could give them the pencil, which lets them have the right to edit. Since it says it's an interest survey, I'm going to assume that this is something students are filling out. So I'll give parents the ability to see it, but I'll give my students the ability to edit it. Myself, I'm also going to give myself the ability to edit. And if it's an interest survey for my classroom, I don't necessarily want that form to be clogging up my principal or vice principal's form queue. So for now, I'm going to leave the red on for the admins, which means they won't be able to view or access it. If it was something that you wanted your principal to be able to see and have access to, then you could change that. Underneath classes, you want to select the class that you want to have access to the form. And for now, we're not going to worry about these two boxes. CSS is a way to do formatting, but if you haven't really done anything with CSS before, you might not want to. Once I've got all that set the way I want, I can click Save Form. And the first time you do that, it's going to send you back to the main menu or the main menu in Ecollect. That's okay. You just come over here to the right, and this little icon here with a pencil is how you get back into edit it. From here, if I want to add questions, I come to Add Element, and it gives me all of the different options I have to add to this specific form. If I want students or guardians to be able to type in a line of text or type in a paragraph, I can use these two options, and that would look like this. Now, it adds it automatically, but notice in order to edit it, same thing I did with the title, I have to click, and then the ability to edit it will show up over here. So from here, I can either title it or not title it. I can add specific directions just for this question, or I could even use this to add a question if I wanted to. These functions right here, custom class, next form, and options, are all kind of advanced settings, so we're not going to work with those right now. Notice that the element permissions are a little bit different than the form permissions. So when we were doing the permission levels before, we were setting the permission levels for the entire form. This right here will just set the permission settings for this question. So for instance, if you had a survey that you wanted both students and guardians to answer, but you had different questions for each one, you could set so that some questions only guardians could answer and some questions only students could answer. You also have this globe option, which you didn't have for the entire form, and that gives global permissions so that you have permissions for everything. Again, since this is an interest survey, maybe something I'm doing at the beginning of the year, I might let parents see it. Students have the ability to edit it. I'm going to leave myself with global access. And since I don't want to necessarily bulk out my admin's form list with this, I'm going to remove the viewing and permissions from the admins. The placeholder, the predefined values, the field size, and the autocomplete data sets, again, are kind of more advanced features that we're not going to deal with in this video, but you could look at later, and it's also explained in the manual if you want to play with those. So now that I've got that added, if I want to add something similar, I can come over here and duplicate it. If I want to add a different type of element, I come over and click Add Element. From here, I can also add multiple choice and checkboxes. Now, the difference between a multiple choice and a checkbox is that multiple choice only lets people choose one option, and checkboxes let them choose multiple. Other than that, they're pretty much the same. You have the same options that you had for the short answer and paragraph settings, which is to set a title and a description. You can also change the element permissions. To add extra choices, you hit the plus icon. To delete one, you hit the minus. And to change what they are, you just click into the text box and then type whatever you want the option to be. You can also, if you have quite a few options, you can come down to the layout and you can change them so that they're all side by side. So for instance, that would look like this looks. Or you can change it so that there are multiple columns. You have all of those same options when you're doing checkboxes. It's just that then the person answering the question can choose multiple choices. Another option you have are the drop-down and the multiple choice drop-down. So the drop-down menu and the multi-choice drop-down menu are going to work similarly to the multiple choice and the checkboxes in that drop-down menus only let them choose one option, and the multi-choice drop-down lets them choose multiple options. And instead of having them listed out like we have for the multiple choice and the checkboxes, it's going to be in a drop-down menu. So that's the only real difference you're going to see there. If you're making a longer survey and there are different sections, you can add a section break. So a section break adds this dotted line, and if you click on it, you can name the next section, just like that. If you wanted to have a name for the section up here, then what you could always do is add a second one. And then you can click and drag that section one up to the top. And so that just kind of lets you visually split up the form. If you want to add maybe like a paragraph of text, you can add this text block, and that won't give the people taking the survey and the ability to add anything. It just gives you a way to add text to your survey. The last option, which can be a little finicky, is the side-by-side container. And it'll show up as this big white box in here. And what you can do is you click and drag other elements, and you can drop them in the side-by-side container. And that actually worked beautifully. Sometimes it doesn't click and drag so well. And if you just want to have columns with your questions, the side-by-side container is how you would do that. So those are all the main elements that you can use to make a survey. The only one we didn't go over is the event calendar. That lets you make signups. It's a little bit more time intensive to work with, so there's going to be a separate video on it. Once you're done getting everything looking the way you want to, you want to come up to the top and click on the title to come and publish it, and then click Save Form. And what that will do is it'll be your final save, and it will also publish it and make it available for the students or guardians in your class to fill out. And the way you can see it at that point is to come back to the main form menu and notice that it's now in my list of forms. And from here, I can edit it, I can delete it, or once people start filling it out, if I click on this little bar graph, it will give me my responses and actually do a little bit of data analysis for me with some percentages and break things out a little bit more.